for most people in the room, it's very clear what cultural aggregation is about. But just as a very summary, it's about gathering digital content from cultural organizations, different organizations, and bringing it together. Bringing it together on the web by using standardized file and metadata formats, formats like Lido, like EDM, that make it possible to bring the data together. And channel this digital data into regional, national, or European portals such as Europeana. So there are a variety of aggregation models. First of all, there's perhaps the most known aggregation for Europeana. This often happens on the basis of projects, ICT PSP projects, which are funded by the European Commission and often focus on a specific domain like library or archive or museum content. You also have thematic aggregation for Europeana, like the Europeana Photography Project, only aggregating photography content, or fashion project, which is only focusing on fashion-related material. Of course, you also have aggregation, cross-domain aggregation by national or regional aggregators. These aggregators often also send on their content to Europeana. But the most common aggregator is probably the regional or a national aggregator that is limited to a certain GLAM domain. GLAM stands for galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. So just a specific domain, museums focusing on library content or so on, or on a specific theme. So what about Belgium? What types of aggregators do we have? Belgium is a very complex country, political-wise. First of all, culture isn't a federal authority. It's governed on the level of the communities. But we do have some federal collections, which are managed by 10 federal scientific institutes, managed by the Science Policy Department. So these collections have nothing to do with culture. It's about scientific research institutes, and they have museum collections or natural history collections or archives. Culture, on the other hand, specifically is managed on community level. Here you have the Flemish community, the French community, which consists of Walloon part of Belgium and Brussels region. They collaborate together, and the German community. So this is about people and culture, movable and intangible heritage, libraries, museums, all managed on community level. Then, to make it even more complex, you also have the regions, and the regions, they have authority about territory. They deal with monuments, archaeology, landscapes, and so on. And finally, the provinces. You have 10 provinces in Belgium, and they try to collaborate on a more regional level so that all the cities and villages work together and do projects together. I will go and present the list of all those different initiatives because, as I said, culture isn't a federal matter, it's a regional or community matter, so we definitely have no national aggregator. The federal initiatives I speak here about are about those 10 federal scientific institutes. So the discussions here are limited to aggregation of federal digital contents about these 10 specific institutes. Within the federal scientific institutes, there were some discussions of starting a public-private partnership in digitizing all of the federal heritage material and in publishing this on a federal portal. There were also some ideas for research projects, but none of these ideas reached maturity, and actually at this moment there are no federal aggregators in place. There are some separative initiatives. They mainly have a focus on aggregating content for Europeana. For example, the Royal Museums of Art and History, they aggregate content from the Museum of Central Africa and the Musical Instrument Museum, specifically for the Musical Instrument Museum's online portal, which is then sent onwards to Europeana. Or, for example, RMH also provides content through projects like Linked Heritage using the Mint ingestion tool and send it from there on to Europeana. On Flemish level, there have been some initiatives. First of all, there was a feasibility study which was held in December 2010, and that study explored the common interests in cultural sector in setting up a cross-domain aggregator in Flanders. They explored needed resources and personnel, technical solution, how the architecture should look like, prerequisites, and also sustainability, because a project is one thing, but after that you have to keep the aggregator alive. So what's going on right now in Flanders in 2013? There's definitely no regional cross-domain aggregators so far. There are some ongoing projects and planned initiatives, and I will list Erfgoed Plus, the Flemish Institute for Audiovisual Archiving, and Libis, the organization I work for. Erfgoed Plus might be for some people known because it's a project, an initiative that also took part in the Europeana local project and is also presented in some other European projects. And it's actually an initiative from the province of Limburg, so one of the 10 provinces of Belgium. It was first designed in 2002 and started in 2005, and this is actually out of project phase. It's a real aggregator, aggregating content from mostly Limburg, but also from Flemish Brabant. It collects existing digital information from all kinds of digital culture heritage repositories, but it does mainly focus on museum content, though there are some other sources in there as well. Erfgoed Plus also harmonized data structures and deals with semantics. For this, they use the AAT Flemish, Dutch version, the Arts and Architecture Thesaurus, to make the data come together and make it comprehensible for the audience. And quite unique technology, they're also already using RDF to publish their data. So this is a picture of the Erfgoed Plus architecture. Their content comes from different sources, different databases, libTMS, SQL, MyAccess, so very different environments. And the mapping usually takes place by the people from Erfgoed Plus in conversation with those different cultural organizations providing input. The data is transformed to the pivot format. It's a format they developed for their own purposes and which is based on the basis of spectrum. And then a mapping is also made to the thesaurus, which is the AAC, Arts and Architecture Thesaurus, and some references are made to the CDOC CRM ontology. After this mapping and conversion takes place, the content is stored in an RDF in a triple store, and after that published on the Erfgoed Plus portal, but also sent onwards to Europeana. So this is how the Erfgoed Plus website looks like. The RDF triple store makes sure that you can search, for example, on person, on place, collection, object, and so on. So it combines data from Limburg, Flemish Brabant, and Leuven collections. So this is probably the most mature example of aggregation we have in Belgium, in Flanders. The other ones are still more in development or in the final stages of the project. The Flemish Institute for Audiovisual Archiving, that's a project that just started, and it's a result of research projects that started before that and already finished. This project actually focused more on long-term preservation and accessibility of audiovisual material. It recently kicked off, and the first year will definitely focus only on this audiovisual material, on archiving, storage, and also, after a while, on publication on a portal and perhaps aggregation to Europeana. Culture might follow, but when is still unclear. It's not sure whether VIA will take care of culture or heritage content. There are other people that want to start an own aggregation service for culture and heritage, but we always have to take into account the VIA, which is now there and which normally will last for the future and will be getting permanent funding after the review of this initial project. Then Libis, the organization I work for, it's actually the library automation service of the University of Leuven. We support not only the KU Leuven itself, its archives and libraries and collections, but we also support scientific and public organizations. Public organizations like, for example, the Flemish or the Federal Parliament, some banks, the European Central Bank, they use systems supported by Libis. And we not only have library systems, but also archival and museum systems, all focusing on different interoperability standards. Libis already provides a kind of unified resource discovery and delivery to Libis partners, which is called LIMO. When you look at this picture, you can see the three pillars of content management systems that are supported by Libis: library, archive, and museum. Three different systems, and the data normally should be able to be questioned through the LIMO-PRIMO interface, no matter if you're searching for archival, library, or museum content. At this moment, the data in there is mainly from the Libis network, which is focused on library content specifically, but this initiative will grow in the future and more content will be added. So Libis is also a partner in Europeana Insight. It's a European best practice network coordinated by Collections Trust. And the idea is that here we will offer aggregation tools for contributing content to Europeana for our partners. In this, we are developing the Europeana Connection Kit in collaboration with all of the content partners and a lot of technical partners and some aggregators. And the entire idea is to simplify the contribution of content to Europeana in a significant way. So for Libis specifically, this means that we have to be able to bring data from three different domains: library, archive, and museums, all managed in different formats, into this common format that is accepted by Europeana EDM. And for this, the Europeana Connection Kit is partly developed by the technical partners itself, but there are also parts developed on a more global level, basically a global level. So the data from Libis will go from the original CMS collection management systems into a collective access database, which will be used as a kind of intermediate database where the content partners can work on their data, prepare it for aggregation to Europeana, add, for example, rights information, which is very specific for Europeana, but which you don't want necessarily to add in your own systems. Do batch editing on your records, for example, at the item type Europeana is asking for in one single movement, and so on. We're also using globally developed ECK functionalities, like the validation of first the Lido output or the MARC output, because the libraries will work with MARC, the museums will work with Lido. Also pitch generation, giving every record a unique persistent identifier, and so on. So this is still in full development. We're now in month 15 or month 20 of the project, I think, so we still have some time to go. Then the last example is of the Federation of Wallonia-Brussels. So they also have a plan, the Plan PEP, and their main objectives are to enable research and presentation of digital collections of the French community, ensure visibility and a common cross-promotion of cultural heritage for the Federation, the Wallonia-Brussels Federation, provide access to these assets through a portal, and be the aggregator for Europeana. So this is also still in a prototype phase. I did some checking on the internet, but actually I couldn't find a lot of new evolvements. It seems like the project is now a bit in silent mode. But it does contain film archival material, museum collections, Marimont, and university libraries, so it is supposed to be a cross-domain aggregator for specifically the Walloon-Brussels Federation. So no national aggregator is planned for Belgium. It will probably never happen. There's perhaps not a reason to have such a thing either. And also cross-domain it's still to become a reality. But so let's have a quick look at another national cross-domain aggregator. Stefan Rode Ensling from the Staatsliche Musea Berlin was kind enough to provide me some information on the Deutsche Digitale Bibliothek, the national aggregator service of Germany. This is still a work in progress also. The beta version is online since November 2012. You can go and have a look on this web link. Currently, already 5,600,000 objects are online. In some cases, images are still missing and they still have to be added. In other cases, for like example, archival documents, there will be no images added at all. Now, this aggregator does not only focus on museums or library content, it's a cross-domain aggregator, archive, library, research, museum, media, monument care, it will all be included in this repository. The data model that the German Digital Library is using is based on CDOC CRM, a conceptual reference model, a very rich format. But for practical reasons, this will be changed to a digital German library EDM model format. EDM is a Europeana data model that Europeana developed specifically for their aggregation of content, and which can host both museum, archival, and library information alike. The German Digital Library EDM model will be closely related to this, the original EDM, but with probably some more specific project-related information and elements. As far as the objectives of the portal, of course, it's supposed to be a national portal, but it also intends to be the national aggregator for Europeana. But so far, no record has been delivered to Europeana via the DDB, because it's still a work in progress. For now, the 5 million and plus objects mostly come from a very few institutions, only very big institutions, but where the separate collections are divided, so it looks like there are more organizations contributing already. Of course, this will probably keep growing in the future. Finance and sustainability of the DDB. It's financed by the federal states and the central government. It's still in the project phase, and for now more than 1 million has been invested so far, and more will follow. Probably the budget is even bigger. There will be an evaluation of the project at the end of the year, and then it will be decided if financing will go on. Now, is everyone happy with the DDB? I can perhaps quickly mention some information I got from Stefan on the feeling museums have with the DDB. Is that, well, they feel like, why do they have to contribute? They also already have their own museum portals. Why do they have to send it to a national portal? And then again, there's also already Europeana, so the content moves on to Europeana to be published. So why another one? They have to invest a lot of work in participating, but they're not getting any funds for this. And they also have some problems with understanding the rights that are attached to the data that they deliver to the DDB. But they are supposed to be collaborating with the DDB from their local government. This is really encouraged and pushed.